You know, usually when we think about fixing or improving our bodies, there is this default expectation of mechanics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we treat ourselves kind of like a car engine. Your shoulder hurts, so you focus strictly on the shoulder hinge. Or, you want a stronger core, so you isolate the abdominals and you just do crunches until you hit a failure point.
Right. We're very conditioned to view the body through this highly compartmentalized lens.
Exactly. And to everyone listening, welcome to today's deep dive. If you're someone who is, curious and just loves a good aha moment without getting totally bogged down in jargon, you are in the right place.
It's going to be a fun one.
It really is.
Hmm.
Today, we're digging into a truly fascinating set of research notes titled From Local Interoception to Whole Body Integration. And I think setting our mission right up front is crucial here. We need to define what this deep dive is not about.
Right. That's an important distinction to make early on.
Because this is not about strength training. We are not talking about pumping iron. And we certainly aren't talking about, forcing your joints into these aggressive, deep stretches.
No, not at all. We are examining a much more foundational layer of movement today. The notes really focus on this concept of interoception.
Interoception. Okay, let's unpack that for a second.
So in clinical terms, interoception is basically your brain's ability to perceive sensations inside your body. It's how it interprets signals from your organs, your tissues, and your nervous system.
Right.
And the ultimate goal outlined in this research is developing this internal awareness of your body's hidden tension network. The idea is to turn the human frame into a unified, low-friction system.
A low-friction system. I love that phrasing. And what stands out immediately in these notes is the assertion that our nervous system, our breathing mechanics, and our resting posture, they aren't just related. They are physically and neurologically fused together.
Yeah, they communicate continuously.
Exactly. Operating totally in the background while we go about our day, entirely oblivious to the conversation that's happening inside us.
And learning about that conversation really forces us to confront the myth of the isolated muscle. Because in reality, you cannot, say, lift a coffee cup without your nervous system simultaneously adjusting the tension in your lower back.
Oh, wow. Really? Just from lifting a cup?
Yeah. It recalibrates the pressure in your abdominal cavity, and it alters your respiratory rate just to stabilize your center of mass.
That is wild.
But because you only consciously feel the arm lifting the cup, you assume the arm is acting completely independently.
Right, which goes back to that car engine mentality we talked about. Thinking of the body as this collection of isolated parts, it's like trying to play a single key on a piano and pretending the rest of the instrument isn't vibrating.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. Like you hit middle C and you might think, just this one little hammer hitting this one string is making all the noise. But the reality of the acoustic physics is that the massive wooden soundboard is vibrating, the cast iron plate is echoing.
The whole thing is engaged.
Exactly. The other strings are experiencing sympathetic resonance. The entire piano is playing that one note. And to hear the whole chord of the body, you have to start by pressing just one key and, genuinely observing the resonance.
That analogy actually maps beautifully onto the neurological reality here, because whole body integration is almost never perceived immediately by someone who isn't trained in it.
It's too overwhelming. Yeah.
Completely. If you try to feel your entire peripheral nervous system and global tension network all at once, you will fail. The brain simply filters it out as too much sensory noise. You need a highly localized focal point to begin.
Which is why the research notes introduce this concept of finding specific entry points. These are localized areas where you can begin to notice these really subtle internal responses. But the list of these points in the text is wild.
It's definitely not what you'd expect from a standard anatomy class.
Not at all. You don't see your bicep or your quad on this list. The text specifically highlights areas like the region beside the navel, the lower abdomen, the solar plexus.
Yeah.
It mentions the deep cervical region, which is basically the deep muscular structures of your neck, the back of the throat, the pelvic floor, and get this, the area behind the eyes.
Yeah, the area behind the eyes is always a surprising one for people.
When you read behind the eyes or the back of the throat, it definitely challenges that conventional gym class anatomy we all grew up with.
Well, those regions are selected very deliberately in the literature. They are not prime movers like your hamstrings. Instead, they are areas that are incredibly dense with mechanoreceptors.
Okay.
And they're physically intertwined with the autonomic nervous system. For instance, the back of the throat and the deep cervical spine share profound neural connections with the vagus nerve.
Which oversees the rest and digest response, right?
Yeah. Exactly, your parasympathetic responses. And similarly, the pelvic floor and lower abdomen regulate intra-abdominal pressure, which dictates spinal stability.
But here's the thing. If you are listening to this right now and trying it, you are probably noticing something the notes actually warn about.
The superficial feeling.
Yes. When you first try to bring your awareness to the back of your throat or your lower abdomen, it feels incredibly superficial. Like when I tried to focus behind my eyes, I just ended up furrowing my brow and tensing my face.
You were mechanically flexing.
Exactly. I felt like I was flexing surface muscles rather than doing anything internally profound.
That is perfectly normal because your brain, it relies on the sensory maps it currently has available in the somatosensory cortex.
Okay.
And for most people, those maps are very low resolution for internal structures. So when you try to focus on the area behind your eye, your brain recruits the gross motor structures it knows best.
Which are the facial muscles.
Right. But the critical shift described in the research is about neuroplasticity. With repeated practice, the physical movement you make stays exactly the same, which is to say, it remains almost imperceptible.
So you aren't trying to flex harder?
No, not at all. What changes is the resolution of your brain's map. Your nervous system refines where attention is directed, and your sensory awareness shifts toward the deeper connective tissues without mechanically isolating or contracting those surface muscles.
So it's less about building a new controllable muscle behind the eye and more about increasing the resolution of the sensory map that was already wired into the brain. You're taking it from like standard definition to 4K.
That is the exact mechanism at play, yes. You are refining the neurological map, which changes how the brain regulates the tissue.
Which brings us to the next big piece of the notes. This leads into a continuous feedback loop. It's this cycle of learning where local awareness leads to whole body integration, which in turn leads to more refined local awareness.
They don't compete with each other.
Right, the text says they develop together. But here's where it gets really interesting, but also a bit confusing for me.
Okay, let's hear it.
If I am just sitting here focusing on a really subtle sensation near my abdomen, how does that suddenly involve my spine or the back of my head? Am I supposed to be actively flexing or moving these things to connect them?
That is the most common misconception, and the notes provide a crucial clarification here. The objective is emphatically not to manipulate individual body parts.
Okay, so no flexing.
Right. It's about neuroplasticity and motor learning. To understand the mechanism, we have to look at fascial continuity.
Fascia, okay.
Think about the deep core muscle in your lower abdomen. When you bring a refined, relaxed awareness to this area, you alter its resting neurological tone.
Which means it softens.
Exactly. And because this muscle physically weaves into the fascial connective tissue of your diaphragm, altering the tension in the lower abdomen directly unspools the tension holding the diaphragm tight.
Okay, so the diaphragm is allowed to descend more freely. But how does that travel all the way up to the head?
Well, the diaphragm doesn't just float in your chest. It has structures called crura.
Crura.
Yeah, and they physically anchor it to the front of your lumbar spine. So when the diaphragm operates with less resistance, it stops pulling erratically on the lower spine.
Oh, wait.
And when the lower spine is stable, the thoracic spine stacked above it can decompress. And when that reorganizes, the deep muscles of your neck no longer have to work overtime to keep your heavy head balanced.
So it's this massive physiological chain reaction.
Yes, a subtle movement or awareness near the abdomen naturally reveals coordinated changes in the diaphragm, the pelvic floor, the spine, and the head. Over time, minimal attention to one area automatically recruits these coordinated responses.
You are just allowing existing patterns to become accessible, not forcing them.
Exactly.
So if we aren't actively forcing our muscles to move, what does it actually feel like when this system starts to connect? Because the notes mention a sensation of release, particularly around the solar plexus, the cervical spine, and the throat.
They do. And they describe it as an undeniable sense of openness, ease, or reduced internal resistance.
Right. So what does this all mean? It's not just your neck muscle relaxing. It's like untangling a knotted necklace.
Ooh, I like that.
Right. You don't yank it apart. You gently loosen one tiny loop, and suddenly the tension across the entire chain reorganizes, and the whole thing falls perfectly into place.
That is a perfect visualization. The pleasant sensation doesn't come from a single muscle relaxing, but from improved coordination across that entire interconnected tension network.
The whole necklace unwinding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the expert text brings in a very specific rule about breathing right at this point.
Oh yeah, the breathing rule.
The rule is Do not try to control it.
Which is so hard. If you tell me to observe my breath, I immediately panic and start taking these massive, unnatural, forced breaths.
It's a universal human response. We associate improvement with doing more, with voluntary effort. But the notes clearly state that your natural autonomic breathing is sufficient. Just observe how natural breathing adapts as the internal tension shifts.
So we just let the tension drop and watch what the breath does on its own.
Yes, and what you'll find is that it becomes quieter, smoother, and vastly less effortful. And furthermore, these changes can positively influence muscle tone, local circulation, and autonomic nervous system activity.
Helping reduce chronic stiffness overall.
Precisely.
But, and this is a big but, hearing about smooth breathing, deep release, and lower friction sounds like pure bliss. But changing deeply ingrained neurological habits usually comes with a catch.
Does indeed.
Because there is an uncomfortable reality to this adaptation. The text unpacks a clear warning. This practice can occasionally cause temporary discomfort, symptoms like temporary fatigue, unusual bodily sensations, or a sense of instability. And I have to act as the proxy for the listener here and challenge this.
Go for it.
If this practice is so deeply natural and we are just letting the body do what it wants to do, why on earth would it make you feel unstable or fatigued? Shouldn't natural feel good right away?
It's a very logical question. But the physiological why, based on the text, comes down to the difference between natural and habitual.
Ah, okay.
The discomfort stems from rapid changes in habitual muscle tone. Your current posture, however stiff or misaligned it might be, is the baseline your nervous system has mapped and accepted as normal.
So even if it's bad, the brain likes it because it's familiar.
Exactly. If you have a chronically tight lower back, your brain factors that tightness into how it balances your center of gravity.
Right.
So when you alter those breathing patterns and shift your autonomic regulation, that chronic tension suddenly begins to melt away. And the jarring experience of suddenly feeling bodily sensations you usually ignore can be a lot.
Your brain momentarily loses its physical reference point.
Yes, your vestibular system and proprioceptors have to rapidly recalibrate. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this isn't harm. It's a transitional period.
The nervous system is basically working overtime to adapt to new coordination patterns.
Exactly, which is highly metabolic and causes that temporary fatigue, which is why gradual exploration is always better than forcing rapid change.
You really can't bully your nervous system into relaxing, can you?
No, force just creates more tension.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to remind everyone listening of the ultimate goal here. We aren't trying to strengthen isolated muscles or simply stretch away a stiff neck.
No, we're looking at the bigger picture.
We are developing interoception to experience the body as a unified, low-friction system, a state where movement, posture, and breathing arise together with minimal effort.
And that leads to what I think is the most beautiful paradigm shift from this entire body of research.
What's that?
It's the realization that you are not acquiring a brand new capability. You are simply rediscovering and refining the body's inherent capacity for integrated coordination that was there all along.
He was just buried under years of habitual tension.
Exactly. You already have the wiring.
That is amazing. And it leaves me with a final thought I want to offer you, the listener, to mull over today. If our bodies already possess this inherent capacity for low-effort, highly integrated movement, how much of our daily physical stress isn't from a lack of strength, but simply a lack of internal listening?
That's a great question.
Next time you feel tension before you try to forcefully stretch it away, what might happen if you just spent a minute noticing the subtle sensations behind your eyes or the back of your throat and just, listened?
It might change everything.
It really might. Thanks for diving deep with us today.